We've been all trying to figure out when the return to quote-unquote office will happen. That timeline appears to have changed literally in the past week. And I'm curious, given the boards that you're on, how you think that timeline has changed at the companies that you're associated with.
Yes, Andrew, first of all, thanks for having me. But with the increase that we're seeing in COVID cases, the surge we're seeing in hospitalization, et cetera, companies are watching and looking at the data every day, especially as it relates to what's happening in their local areas where their companies are. And we are seeing more companies delaying their return to work plans and or adjusting those plans as they focus on the health and safety of their employees, of customers, as well as of suppliers.
The other divergence we now have is a bunch of big companies saying, look, we are going to mandate vaccines for our white-collar workers. This is what's happening at Walmart. But for what might be described as our blue-collar workers, we're not going to. And it's creating quite both a rift and some real question marks as to why that's happening. Can you explain it?
Honestly, Andrew, I can't explain it. The companies I'm involved with have not separated how they're looking at treating their workers in terms of white collar versus blue collar. On all honesty, all health and safety of all employees is important. As we look at making mandates and or not, that really depends upon the environment in which people are working, how much they have to interact with others, and whether or not they can be safe with masking, testing, et cetera.
Right. But Shelley, the issue is, and this is what's so interesting to me, you have a company like a Tyson, for example, which is mandating it, and you would describe those workers as blue-collar workers. Walmart doing something very different. They're saying, you know what, the white-collar workers that work in our offices, we will mandate it for. I would argue they're doing that because they can actually get compliance, and they're not worried about a compliance problem. However, the people actually who are going to interact with the most people, the people who work in the stores, the people who work on the shelves, people who work in transportation, logistics, delivery, all of that, we're not going to require it of them because we are so scared that if we were to, that they would walk off the job and we'd have a supply chain problem.
There is a balance that companies have to make as they try to determine how to maintain health and safety of employees, suppliers, and customers, as well as enable environments in which people can operate, right, and be effective. And they really are trying to thread that needle to determine where can we indeed institute masking is coming back in a lot of places, regular testing in places. Right. But in all candor, this is a hard thing, and it's going to be changing daily as we get new information. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, numbers were dropping, things were improving, and people were coming back. And now things are changing, and companies are scrambling to figure out how do we do the right thing by everyone and continue our communications with everyone.
But Shelley, what do you personally think? As somebody who's a leader in the business community, we have a business community after the Business Roundtable who said part of our mission as companies should be to help society, which I would imagine in part should be about keeping society and employees safe and frankly alive. And yet we have a situation where some companies are taking these sort of unique leadership positions and others aren't.
I personally think that we need to be encouraging as much vaccination as possible. And as the FDA starts to approve, we have their pending approval on a number of the vaccinations in terms of formally, I think we will actually see more companies actually mandating vaccines and or consequences such as regular testing and masking for those that aren't and not enabling people to come back into work. But, Andrew, it's interesting. One of the things that we haven't talked about at all is the fact that people not returning to work actually has other ramifications. Most people want to be good at their jobs. And to be good at your job, you actually need to interact with others, get support and collaboration from others, and actually create friendships and relationships at work. And that's really difficult when you're remote. And more than that, most studies show that outside of the immediate family that you're a part of, it is through your coworkers that you have regular social interaction. And loneliness is already a problem, right, in our society. So we've got to figure out how we create environments that are safe. And we need to realize that we're all in this together. So the more people that get vaccinated, the better off we will be.